Welcome, everyone, to Westcliff University's Distinguished Innovator Speaker Series. And the last speaker in our spring series, Kelly Fallucca. Kelly is founder and CEO of Sugar Please Productions and a Toastmasters Toastmaster. She's going to take us on a journey, encouraging us to think differently about how we present in public. She'll provide us with tips and tricks that will take our presentations from boring to brilliant with confidence. I'm Dr. Barry Sandra, Director of Entrepreneurship at Westcliff University, and your moderator today, and I'm happy you were all able to join us this morning. We'll get to Kelly in just a moment, but first I want to briefly introduce Westcliff University to those in the webinar audience who might not be familiar with the institution. Pictured here is our campus in Irvine, California. Westcliff is an accredited private institution of higher learning with over 5,000 students enrolled both live, online, and on campus. There are 4 colleges: the College of Business, the College of Education, the College of Law, and the College of Technology and Engineering. We also offer a full-stack coding boot camp certificate and a cybersecurity boot camp certificate. To learn more about Westcliff, including our awesome undergraduate athletic program, I invite you to visit our website at westcliff.edu, as well as Westcliff University on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And now for our speaker. Kelly Fallucca is a video coach and brand specialist. She has more than 15 years experience in traditional communications, marketing, and brand development. The first half of her career was spent behind the camera in service to her clients in building a business. During the pandemic, she rejoined Toastmasters to mentor new speakers. She realized how very important video and public speaking skills are to personal success. Yet so many people are still not on board with this. Her passion is helping people become confident communicators in a fun and easy way. Kelly, welcome.
Thank you, Barry.
Listen, Kelly, as I mentioned in the intro, that you were a Toastmaster and then you left, and then you came back. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Over 20 years ago, I was a sales trainer, and I had to get on stage before I went to business school, and someone recommended Toastmasters, excuse me. Then in 2012, I contracted thyroid cancer, and I literally almost lost my voice. Then, fast forward 10 years, I'm in Washington, and I'm starting a new business at 51 years old because I realized that people still have problems presenting. They still get nervous in front of camera. And so Toastmasters really came full circle for me.
So Kelly, could you tell us a little bit about what you do and how you actually do your coaching?
Sure. We do one-on-one via Zoom or in person, small group coaching, or large forums. And basically it's show and tell. I do it and then you do it. Getting on camera is the best way to get over your nerves and work through any quirks you may have. And being able to work with clients one-on-one, we're able to customize to find out what their unique talents are and bring those to the stage.
Now, during COVID, obviously everybody had to go on Zoom. And they had these very strange backgrounds and all of that, and it really wasn't staged very well. How do you recommend people change that?
We're going to touch on it a bit later, but I recommend at a bare minimum that all presenters need a microphone, lighting, and if you want to get into virtual backgrounds, a green screen is a must. And now it's never been easier. You can get very low entry gear, $20, and then work your way up as you can afford it.
Great. Well, Kelly, the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you. I brought up my fellow presenters here because I was kind of synergizing with their talks. Barry had Red Kogan on, and she talked about mindset and the fact of connecting your heart and mind. That's a big part of presentation. And David Friedman, I really enjoyed his talk because he talked about being an investor and listening to hundreds, if not thousands of pitches a year. And he found that a lot of presenters were 10 slides in before he even really knew what the subject was. And I have found that to be true with my coaching clients. So I'm kind of inviting them to join me today virtually. What we're going to be talking about today is my perspective on edutainment as a mindset, how to set your stage for success, and the opportunities of adopting an edutainment mindset. Welcome to Hit Refresh, reinventing the way we present, taking your presentations from boring to brilliant. Let's start with some self-reflection questions. As we move through our time together and Barry's acquiring your questions, I want you to think about, am I being understood when I take the stage every time, either online, in person, or in a one-to-one meeting? Am I doing my best to keep my audience actively engaged throughout the entire presentation? And lastly, are you bringing the emotion? Could an AI avatar do your job? Because it's coming, folks. First, a quick detour. Every time I talk about public speaking, there's one big elephant in the room, and that's the fear of public speaking. And I'm going to make a very bold statement here, friends. Please don't buy books or programs that promise they can abolish fear or destroy fear or kill fear. Fear is not a one and done. You want to take on programs and books that teach us how to deal with fear in a healthy way. And what I like to do is transmute it into adrenaline, which we'll also talk about a little bit later. And no wonder people have fear, right? When we talk about the fear of public speaking, I believe especially as kids in the United States, our school system, we started getting post-traumatic stress syndrome over public speaking from the very beginning. Think about when your teacher busted you, right? Have you ever been in that situation where you wrote a love note to a boy you liked or a girl and your teacher busted you? Well, not only were we shamed and feared, but the poor boy or girl that the note was directed to was also shamed. And then book reports. I don't know about you all, but I was not given body lesson lectures and how to be engaging. So we're giving these fumbling book reports and the teachers are getting frustrated, and it just starts shutting us down to where we just want to get through it. Same thing in business. We just want to get through that speech. And then how many of you went to business and work before you even started school like I did? Now we're having to present in front of educated people and our bosses, and we're getting lost and frustrated and we can't find our place. So what can we do about fear? If we can't abolish it or destroy it, I believe we have two options. We can work with a coach or a psychiatrist, or if you have a gripping fear, you definitely want to get medical help because fear can demolish dreams and shut people down. It's no joke. But the things we can actively do is work through it and transmute it into adrenaline. What do I mean by that? Think of Michael Jordan. Think of the poor opponents that had to go against him time after time, knowing that they may not win. They had to have a mindset coach and a trainer. They needed to attack every game like, I got this. They couldn't go in thinking this is Michael Jordan or it would be a disaster. Same thing with speaking. What I like to see in my speakers is when they progress through coaching, and we can often tell new speakers from good speakers and professional speakers just through body language. What do I mean by that? A new speaker's probably going to show their emotion on their face. They said something wrong and they're trying to recapture their composure, and then they kind of get back into a groove. A good speaker is going to be a little wobbly in the beginning, but then they get right into it and they perform brilliantly. And then professional speakers, we still have those nerves and the wobbles, but we work it off backstage. You hear things like morning routine and meditation and Fred's mind-heart connection, but it's going to be different for everyone. But you do a routine and you work it off backstage. So when you take the stage, your palms are open and you're smiling and you're engaging with your audience because you worked through that fear backstage. Moving on to edutainment as a mindset. This is the fun stuff. Fear's a little heavy, so let's get into some fun things. How many of you actually cringed when I said the word edutainment? And how many of you thought, nope, that is not for me? Fair. There's been some good and bad talk about edutainment, but really, let's just start with a definition. It's just edutainment and education married to give the audience a good presentation of your material. And it started with kids. We saw this in Disney, Mr. Rogers, and kids were learning their ABCs and watching videos. And then during COVID, Netflix went crazy with adult education programs. And now we're getting into really deep topics like the mind and History 101. And they did a great job in these series of taking very complicated, complex issues and giving us visuals and telling us a story that we could understand, even if we weren't scientists and advanced PhDs. Education is for everyone. So why aren't we doing it in our business presentations? I have a theory. Education is either mindset or tactics, So when I talk about edutainment as a mindset, it's basically the strategy of you getting yourself in state to deliver the presentation the way the audience is going to accept it. And then we still have the tactics. The edutainment tactics are the tools. Those are the polls and the engagement games. And tactics can vary from very subdued to outrageous. You do see people on YouTube dressing up in their classrooms and engaging adults, but it doesn't have to be that. And we've all learned about mindsets in the past. We've heard about growth mindsets, positive energy mindsets, entrepreneurial mindset. So why shouldn't we take care and create a mindset when we present? Tactics. As I mentioned, it doesn't need to be outlandish. While it can be that, the main point is to find a way to engage with the audience that's comfortable for you. It's not about showing off. It's about showing up. I have to work with clients on this on a daily basis. They come to me and say, I want to present like you, and I'm a gregarious, bold personality. And if you're stoic or demure, don't feel like you have to act to get the audience engagement. Going back to what I said in the opening, it's about finding your magic, your je ne sais quoi. And we work on bringing that out. For some of you, it'll be your eyes. You'll tell your story with your eyes. For some of you, it'll be your voice. You have deep, gorgeous voices. Others of you, it will be humor. Find your beat and stick to it. Don't show off, just show up. Now, a tactic that works for everyone, I want to share this with the group, is business storytelling. A fantastic way to hook your audience in the beginning is to tell a business story. It's not just for the movies or for fun presentations. And if you will, I'm going to share an example. This is not a business story, but this is a presentation I gave to my public speaking group. And it's going to illustrate that story hooks your audience before you get into the facts. And I'm just going to do the opening for you. Before we get started, if you would all drop in the chat or raise your hand in the poll section for Barry, what do you think this presentation is about? The purple imposter. Can you guess what I'm going to say? Okay, here we go. I was 8 years old, lying in my bed. My little sister was next to me sleeping. And all of a sudden, the air went silent, much like it does before an earthquake. And then all of the hair stood up on the back of my neck. I looked over and Nikki was still sleeping, so I worked my way to the door. Mommy, is everything okay? Then this figure started approaching me. It resembled my father, but as it got closer, I could see this purple rage, and I heard sounds I'd never heard before. It resembled my dad, but it definitely wasn't my dad. My father, David Fallucca, served in one of the most elite forces in the US Army, the Green Berets. He contracted Agent Orange, which is a toxic chemical poisoning. And when he was younger, he would throw up so violently and his skin would turn purple. He broke all the blood vessels in his face, in his neck, in his hands. He looked like a purple monster. So let's break that down. Instead of visually assaulting people and putting up Vietnam, I started with a story because certain topics as presenters that we have to present on are emotionally charged. And when I say Vietnam, people are going to think of politics or death toll. And I was talking about an illness and a personal story. I didn't want to have those preconceived judgments of my talk. Same thing with business, especially if you have sensitive subjects, folks. You don't want to start showing charts of how business is plummeting and money's down and we have to make cuts. You want to lead in with a story and have a plan on how it's going to unfold. And of course, we do our homework. We have our charts and our research and the blood, sweat, and tears that we took to gather all this information, but we don't bombard people with it in our introductions. And sadly, I just saw this at a conference where a world-class speaker took the stage and she looked exactly like this photo. She had all these crazy charts, and these are educated people in her field, and they were looking around saying, what is she talking about? We don't want that to happen in our presentations. Barry, should we take some questions on this segment?
I do have a question here. How can we respond to unexpected questions raised after the presentation that we're not prepared for?
Great question. Couple ways. One of my favorite ways is to just be honest. If it's something that you just didn't prepare for, ask the person if you could kindly get back to them and then do it quickly. Make sure you get the answer. The second way you might consider doing it is raising your hand and asking if someone else in the audience has subject matter that could contribute to that question. But in either way, I would still follow up with the person who asked the question.
That's good. That's very helpful. Yeah. You feel it's important to actually rehearse ahead of time, correct?
I do. The thing about saving our information, because especially when it's a topic that we did all the blood, sweat, and tears, and we did have to do a lot of research, we want to just kind of get it over with and put everything up so people can be impressed. And if you don't practice leading people into your presentation, you're going to visually assault them, and then it just blocks the barrier. They're not listening.
There are, different people have different ways of approaching this. In other words, I can't memorize at all. If I don't have a teleprompter in front of me, I can't do it. So what I generally do is I know the material so well that I basically talk it through fresh each time. Every time is different, but it's basically the same, if you know what I mean. Do you follow that?
I love it. It's exactly what I do. I am a storyteller by nature, and I actually do things a little bit opposite than Toastmasters with my proteges. I don't teach script writing till way into the process. What you want to do is tell stories that are familiar with you. And like you said, Barry, have the bullet points so you know you're going to always stay on track, but you want to make it fresh every time you deliver it, especially if you're an educator, because if you're bored, the audience is bored.
It's absolutely essential to have a 100% grasp on the subject matter.
Yes.
Because if you don't, it's immediately apparent, correct?
Correct. Fantastic. Let's talk about setting our stage. One of the most important things about setting the stage is to separate it from your stage and your audience's stage. What do I mean by that? We have educated people here. We have educated professors. We have business people, business leaders. We know how to take a stage. We know when our name's called to come up and take the stage. What I mean by set the stage, in every talk you're going to give, make sure it's set up for your audience. And I'm so sad that we still have to keep talking about this, but lighting and audio are essential, folks. If they can't hear and see you, if they can't see your facial expressions, it's a barrier to understanding, especially for our English as second speaking folks. Excuse me, I'm fumbling there. If they can't see our lips moving, sometimes it's hard for them to understand us. And we're still doing this. We're looking down at our computer and we're yelling into it. And it's just A, not attractive, B, it's dark and nobody can hear us. So please, if you hear anything else today, get yourself a microphone and light yourself. Never leave the stage. This is my favorite thing to teach. In Toastmasters, they teach us as the Toastmaster, we're running the meeting. And when we invite guests and speakers up, we are to keep the stage. So let's say, for instance, I call Barry to the stage and he's way in the back of the room. I'm going to stay up there clapping and keep the audience going until he takes the stage. Well, what I noticed online is people give up their stage all the time. They do a full screen PowerPoint, so we don't even see their expressions at all, or they're fumbling through screen shares and showing documents before they set the stage and the tone of the talk. You always want to do your introductions and close to camera. You do not want to have a slide that's completely blocking you from camera, because you're not going to get the emotional buy-in that we need as presenters before we get to the fun facts and research. There's 3 ways to do this. I like to teach the 1/3 screen, which I did for the Purple Imposter. I build all of my graphics on 1/3 of the screen, and I keep the other screen blank for me, so I can be on screen with my content. If you have light hair like myself, I recommend dark backgrounds. If you have darker feature, dark hair, do a light background. We want to create a lot of contrast with the camera so people can see our facial expressions. I don't think it would have been the same if I would have had a busy background when I did that introduction for the talk on the Purple Imposter. The second way we can do it if we're in person, sometimes this works online, is to do a full screen image. But what I would like for you to consider is do an abstract image before you do a title screen or your headshot. Just put an image up and let the audience kind of wonder, where are we going with this, and get their minds thinking. Because then when you take the stage and you pull your audience in with the story, they're already going to be imagining, wow, what is this going to be about? Because you had an interesting graphic on the screen. And then lastly, just go black. Go blank screen, either black or white, especially on those topics, like I mentioned earlier, like business is crashing, we have to let people go. We don't want to distract people with a background, and we definitely don't want to hit them with data and charts until we calm down the emotion. In this case, we're not trying to engage emotion. We're trying to keep it neutral so everybody's on the same page and we can get through the hard part before we get into the solution. Barry, do we have questions on this section?
Actually, we have quite a few questions.
Fantastic.
What are the cues that you can look for that your audience that tells you your audience is still with you?
On Zoom, I like to look at the gallery. People try to hide from it, but I can tell when people are looking at their cell phones or they're looking around or they're lost. It's a cue for me to go back. Either I'm not being entertaining enough or they didn't understand something I said. In person, it's easy. People are fluttering around. And then at that point, you need to take control of your room again as a presenter.
Professional speakers get nervous, as you mentioned. How do you prepare and channel that nervous energy?
For me, like I said, I like to transmute it into adrenaline. Some people like to go the opposite way and do the deep breathing or meditation. I like to have a dance party. I like to put my favorite song on and actually move my body, because it's a reminder for me to use my body and hand gestures. If I get too calm and quiet, then I have a tendency to not bring the energy, and I'm a high energy speaker. So those are the 2 ways to go. You can either calm yourself down with music and meditation, or you can do a quick activity, some jumping jacks, or have a dance party and get yourself in state.
So, the audience, our webinar audience, absolutely loves the way you're presenting it with your black background and those slides. What tools do you use to present like that? To basically have an image in the corner and your black background?
Sure. You can use any software you like, PowerPoint, or I like Canva for new beginners, or you can even use Adobe products. Basically, what you want to do is on any slide, choose your color, build your graphic to the 1/3, and then I present it actually through virtual backgrounds. This is how I'm able to cycle through without seeing that share screen and it fumbles. And for me, sometimes PowerPoint is just glitchy. So when I'm doing online, I love virtual backgrounds. How you do that in Zoom is you click on that little arrow by your video icon, and under virtual background, you can upload individual pictures. You won't be able to do a whole presentation, but you'll save each of your slides. You will save each of your slides as a JPEG, And basically you'll have a whole bunch of little pictures in your virtual background, and you just cycle through them.
Great. You can go on.
Opportunities. As speakers, people really like to talk about the loss, the opportunity cost, right? We hear this in business all the time. What happens when we don't execute correctly? But there are a lot of opportunities to having an edutainment type mindset. One is personal brand. I think we all know this by now. We have one whether we want to or not. The bad thing with online is everything we do digitally is an extension of our personal brand now. I'm talking about your slides and how you present and how they can see you. Are you lit? Can they hear you? What kind of materials are you handing out? It's all an extension of personal brand. But where this gets fun is once you start branding yourself, then you start getting a following for your organization or yourself, because people go, yep, that's Kelly. They know when they see me, they're going to see blonde hair on a black background. And typically when I'm doing my own presentations, my colors are red, black, and white, and you will see that in everything I do. Reach. Now is the best time on earth to be a presenter, internally and externally. We can present one to many at a much greater scale. Instead of doing a Zoom call for 25 people, we can do it for 1,000. And think about if you're in sales, you can train an army to sell your product for you on one call. And now instead of one-on-one sales training, we're creating these forces. So reach is very powerful. Make sure you're building that into your presentations. And income opportunities. On top of a career, there are so many income opportunities now. We can get paid to speak for our knowledge. We can start a YouTube channel, share our knowledge and monetize it. We can create blogs. We can do so many things online to not only enhance our career, but to share our knowledge and earn additional income. And this is my favorite. A great opportunity that I wish everyone would seize is to create a legacy. We spend our entire lives learning our craft, going to school, learning through other people, and then we hide our information to ourselves. Why not build videos and all the things I discussed before and leave a legacy? It's sharing your information, again, not to show off, it's about showing up and sharing your information with those yet to come. For instance, in my public speaking club, I built our first ever YouTube channel. And I did that not just for social media and to gain new members. I did that to create a legacy for our senior speakers. I knew many of them wouldn't video themselves, and their speeches are so dynamic and rich that I wanted our new members to see those. So building a legacy is an important thing that we can all do as professionals and thought leaders. So how did we do on those self-reflection questions? Do you guys feel that you bring your A game with your energy, you create emotional connection and keep people engaged? Or do you kind of feel like an AI avatar could do your job? If that's the case, I really ask you to kind of go back and look at the edutainment mindset tips that we talked about. Make sure that you're lit and you're setting your stage for every presentation, whether it's online, in person, or in video. And then lastly, leaving the legacy. I really think it's important for us in our communities to leave a legacy. And in closing, the most important thing we can realize is that how we communicate is changing in real time. Our tools are changing. Our tactics are changing. How we present and where we present are changing. But your mindset is your choice. Choose a mindset that's going to deliver your message so your audience actually hears you and you get the results that you are asking for. And lastly, for those of you who wanted more of the tactics, more of the how do we engage people, I created a free resource guide for you, and Barry's team will distribute that for you all. And it was my pleasure to kind of dive into these. All of these topics could be their own speech. So if we don't get to your question, or if there's other topics you want to dive a little deeper into, please email me. I'm happy to engage in additional conversations. Barry, how did we do? Do we have more questions?
Yeah, oh yeah, we do. There's a lot of people really want to know what tools you're using for this, because they're all impressed with the look, the style, basically your branding, which is what you've created there. But they think there's a special tool for creating the graphics. It probably isn't, but they also want to know how you're actually introducing it. And I think I know you did it once, but I think it's worth going through it again because I'm getting a lot of questions about it.
Of course. I would call my setup a mid-tier setup. So I mentioned for beginners, you want to have a microphone, a light, and your graphics can be built in any program you want. If you're starting out, I recommend using Canva. It's a free program. And what's amazing about Canva is the tutorials on YouTube are amazing. And what I teach people when you're starting to build your videos, and especially your backgrounds for presenting, is you want to remove the background. Like for instance, I'll give you an example here. I actually use icons instead of photos to kind of lead you through. You don't want to do anything too busy. And then once you have that photo or icon, put that on one side of your screen, either way, it could be on the left or right, and then save that as a photo. And you're going to go into Zoom and you're going to load those as virtual backgrounds. So you will not be switching on screen share. You will literally just be clicking your right arrow and going through your presentation. Was there a second part of that question? I'm sorry, did I miss something?
No. That's good. That's good. I'd like to go through a little exercise with you right now, and I think we hadn't planned this, but I think it's a good idea to do it.
Sure.
I want you to critique this. All right?
Okay.
And my emotional support plan. I call
I love
Spot.
emotional support plans.
Yeah. All right. Now, this is not a perfect setup, not a perfect staging. Be very frank. How would you change this?
Sure, I'm going to lose eye contact for a second just to take another look at you. First thing I would do is I would put you on a stool or a chair without a back because I can see your chair. And the reason we want to do that is you don't want to look lax like you're sitting in a chair. I actually present on a stool when I'm on Zoom, so it forces me to sit. Mm-hmm. The other thing I would consider is maybe going even a little darker on your background because your suit, to me, is actually matching your wall. So either darker background, lighter suit, or dark suit, lighter background. Create a little bit more contrast. Support plant, I love. And I would probably put an exterior light. They have these cute little LED lights to light the plant so you have a little more visual there. Mm-hmm. And I think you look great. I would probably just try to get you closer to camera so I can see your face more.
Great.
How was that?
And that's good. And the little props and stuff like that?
Props are good, just keep them minimal and make sure. That's why you want to take more space in the screen and really fill the frame because we want them looking at us. Right now, you're kind of the same size as your plant. You want to be the subject of the talk.
Great. Now we got a lot of questions about nervousness. How do you basically, when you get up in front of people, sometimes you can be shaking. Your hands can be shaking, things like that. Obvious signs of nervousness. How do you get around that?
In person, a great thing to do is get there early and engage with the audience. If you can stand outside and welcome people, shake their hand, because now you feel like you're kind of making friends with people before you just get up and present yourself to them. Online, I think it's very beneficial to get the nerves out. So like I said, have a pre-online ritual. When we talked about the professional speakers, I like to do dance party just because it kind of gets me moving. But if you have too much nerves, then the opposite will work for you as well, the meditation. So if you're really feeling jittery, really deep breathing, I'm talking, and just hold, and blow it out slow, so slow. It actually has a chemical thing that happens in our body where it will calm you down. So deep breathing or dance party and get your nerves out.
Yeah, I agree with you. I found that if I have an opportunity, if I'm going to get in front of a lot of people, if I have an opportunity to engage with them informally on stage ahead of time, it makes it easier to actually present.
100%.
Yeah. But how do you get over making a mistake or fumbling during a presentation?
You give yourself grace, folks. As I said, especially for new speakers, I don't teach speech writing and monologues. As you get professional, you can use the teleprompters and such, but Making mistakes is endearing. It shows your audience that you're a real person giving a real talk. The thing is, when you do it, catch yourself. And I fumbled a couple words today and I caught myself and I apologize or I restated it. Don't feel weird about restating something, because remember, it's not about us making the mistake. It's about presenting to be heard. And if you kind of hide and shy away from the mistake you made and don't say it again clearly for your audience, then you don't give them that opportunity to A, forgive you, and B, be heard. They just see you as you're not confident in your material.
What are some of the tips to reduce being nervous if it creeps in during a presentation? Do you have any tips?
Yes, I present with my shoes off unless I'm in person. So right now I've got my feet planted in the carpet, so I feel grounded. I'm not, floating around. Another thing I like to do is just remember the breathing. If you can just, not the deep breathing, but just actual breathing, that causes like 90% of the problems to go away. When we get anxious, we either hold our breath or we talk for way too long without breathing. And then that causes all the jitters and weird things that tend to come out.
The old advice of imagining the entire audience naked doesn't work, I guess. Huh?
No, please don't do that. I think that was the worst advice ever. Not only do I want to see you all naked, but I think it creates more anxiety, really. What we want to do is look at their face. Shy presenters will tend to either look at the wall or their material or anywhere else but the people. But if you can force yourself to look at people more, everybody wants you to succeed. You may have one naysayer who isn't in line with what you're presenting, but I guarantee you, everyone in the room wants you to succeed. So find those smiling faces and engage with them.
Yeah, you mentioned Canva and everything, and your graphics. There was one question about whether it creates any lag or glitches during a slideshow. It doesn't seem to.
I have had no glitches with virtual backgrounds, knock on wood. I have had glitches sharing PowerPoint, but I've also seen PowerPoint done very successfully, so I don't want to shy you away from that. Just if you're going to use PowerPoint, still try to do that 1/3 rule. You can still build your slide 1/3 of the side so you take the screen. My biggest peeve with PowerPoint is when people flash an opening screen and they don't present to camera, or they keep themselves so tiny in the corner that when they're telling a juicy story, I can't see their face.
Got so many good questions here coming on. How do you deal with distractions? How do you deal with them? Either your own distractions or something that may come to mind or something from the outside. How do you deal with those? Do you ignore them and just keep going through, or do you address them?
It depends. If I'm in person, I actually address them. There's a lot of speakers who don't, but you have to remember we're there for the audience, and in person, people are typically paying to hear the information. And if you don't remove the distraction, it's a disservice to them. Online, if people are looking down or whatever, you can't control that. A lot of people are going to check their email while you're presenting online. What you can do is either increase your engagement, get a little more animated, or you can simply make a phrase and say, is everybody following along? Like shock, get out of your speaking mode and kind of do a shocking statement. If you can't regain the audience, then just look at the people on Zoom that you're connecting with and try not to look at the people that are distracting you.
What are some of the gestures we can use with our hands that make us feel more comfortable but not look weird?
Oh, I love this one. Especially in Zoom, we have to remember if I'm talking down here, you can't see my hands or you see partial hands. So when you're online, you want to bring your hands up. And I love open palm gestures because it calms the audience down, it shows trust, and it actually calms us down a little bit. So you notice today I actually said how many of us a couple of times. That was a moment for me to take a breath and for you to see my palm and see that I'm being genuine and calm and I know my information. That's a great way to kind of control the gestures. Other gestures you can use, if you're going to say, I hear you, why not, do like you would if you were doing body language, but keep it simple. And you only want to do a gesture to accentuate a point. I am very guilty of this. I'm Italian Irish. I talk with my hands. So I actually hold my hands in my lap right now until I'm going to pull up for a gesture. Otherwise, you'll see flailing hands.
We have a question. One person has trouble with makeup and hair. How important is the appearance of the presenter, and what advice would you offer?
It is important, but not in the way that you think. A lot of people think I don't like something about myself and it's a barrier to presenting. What you want to do is just make yourself clear. Like I said, the lighting, your clothing choices. Don't wear crazy printed things if you're trying to get people to pay attention to you. That's why you'll almost always see me wearing black. I don't want people looking at my shirt or whatnot. And keep your makeup either simple or bold. I obviously take the bold choice, but simple is a great way to show that you are calm, cool, and collected. Bolder makeup is a great way to say, hey, I'm here and I'm confident and I have something to share with you. Your hair, I am not a stickler on hair. Some people will say, pull it back, keep it perfect. I say, do you, just be more concerned with what you're wearing to not be a distraction. And jewelry, especially for men and women. We don't want bracelets because you're going to pick up on the mic. And just simple things that you like this coin is important to me because I got it in Italy. It's an Italian coin. And it's one of those things that calms me down. So choose things, if it's going to be a ring or earrings that are important to you, because for some reason, it just kind of calms you down and makes you feel better.
How do you handle filler words,
Toastmasters, friends. The great thing about Toastmaster is they count those things for us. And if you're not in a club, videotape yourself or record yourself, excuse me. It's the best thing you can do. We don't always know what our filler words are. We assume it's going to be so, but other speakers get on a quirk. Like I've heard speakers say, really, really, really. So you want to record yourself so you pick up your filler word or your extraneous sentences that you always use. And the more you watch it, the less you'll do it. You just have to do it. I always say you've got to practice physically and mentally. So for a speech, say for the speech, I would every night before I go to bed, run it through my head. And I'm not reading a script. I'm just running through my points. Okay, I got this, I got this. And then when I wake up, I'm going to turn on the video and see how much my subconscious picked up. If you practice your speeches at night before you go to sleep, your subconscious will hold on to them. Then you wake up and do it on video, and you will be surprised how good your speech comes out without even looking at notes.
Here's a question that's I can relate to, because whenever I give a presentation, I typically like to walk back and forth and talk as if I'm talking to one person, in the room. This person basically said sort of the same thing. They're animated when they're talking. Do you think this is an advantage or a disadvantage? And what advice do you have to keep the right amount?
It can be both an advantage or a disadvantage. Nervous people who walk will start pacing. They will just kind of move all over the place and go back to the podium and try to find some security. A good mix is, they call it stage left, center, and stage right. So when you open your presenter and you're presenting, you want to be straight to your audience online or in person. And if you're in person, then you want to go stage left and actually look at the people to the left of you, because the people in the wings kind of get cut off. Say your next line to those people, come back to center stage, give another point, then go off right, look at the people on the right, give another point, then come back center stage, and then stay center for a little bit and then do it again. It's all about slow pace when you're live. And then on Zoom, I actually will present standing up sometimes. So all you have to do is get an extension pole for your webcam, like a tripod, get that thing up high on your desk and stand back on a wall or a green screen. So if I were doing like that in Purple Imposter story, that would be really good of me standing on Zoom, because I could actually walk up to the camera, right? So there's ways in which you can do this online and in person.
How do you manage social tics like stuttering?
You have to breathe through them and again, give yourself grace. You need to work with a voice coach if you have something really bad that's just, like you're always blurring words together or whatnot. You want to work with someone. But in general, just slow down. And I had someone in Toastmasters, this might have been Jean Tracy, our founder. You count to 5 to yourself before you say something, and you're going to feel like it's an eternity. So I might say the purple imposter, and I'm going to count to 5 in my head before I say something else. And that helps you not only give the audience time to digest what you're saying, but you can take a breath and you'll be calmer when you deliver that next line. Because I'm a fast talker. I have to always slow myself down and take a breath.
Here's a question from two people that I can relate to absolutely. I mean, it's about projecting your voice appropriately. I have a very soft voice, and most of the time people can't hear me. How do you know what the right volume is?
What you want to do is record yourself, and there's two fixes. You're going to work with a vocal coach, and there's also some great lessons on YouTube about finding your mid voice. So instead of when we get nervous, we talk high, and when we're mad, we talk low, but we have this middle voice. And a lot of us don't speak from our middle voice to be heard. Another thing you can do is to record yourself and change the levels of your microphone. If you really have a soft voice and you struggle with it, you might need to have a different microphone and amp that up. Kind of like we did in our sound check today, Barry. You had a great microphone, but I just couldn't hear you.
What's the best way to prepare? Should it be in a mirror, in front of a mirror? People practice with people in front of you. What's the best way?
I like all of it. I like practicing in front of people if that's your style. It's not my style. I like to practice in front of a mirror or record myself. I like to give the first speech just how I want to do it, and then I will ask my mentors for feedback. How could I have done that better? Some people like to practice with people prior to a speech and get feedback. And that is really a great thing to do, especially for business presentations, because you want to make sure you're hitting all the points. So you might invite your CFO and CEO for a 10-minute meeting and say, am I really delivering this in the intent that you're wishing? So invite people that are contributing the information to listen to you. But at the end of the day, it's really mirror, in person, and the best way I can think of is video.
How can speakers of how can people who have English as a second language ensure that the audience understands their accent?
We have this problem too in our club. One thing is to slow down and make sure you're being heard. That's the very first thing. Second is you want to do that 5-second count at the end of your words, because English is a second language. For those folks, they can sometimes roll into the next word and they don't finish the word. So practice finishing your sentences. Don't do a monologue and give a speech. Give your speech sentence by sentence to camera. So instead of saying, we're going to talk about the purple imposter today, and then go in, see how that's kind of just rolling together, I would say, we're going to talk about the purple imposter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then launch into the next one. And the key there is when you get to the end of that second sentence to finish your word. Practice putting that a little bit more than you would in person. So instead of saying we're at the end, say we're at the end. Like practice overemphasizing it to camera, and you'll hear it how it should end. And then you soften that and work with the camera. And then you'll start hearing yourself finishing words and finishing sentences, and the accent won't roll into the next line with you.
Great. When do you know when you're ready for a presentation and not over rehearsed?
Oh, I love that one. When I was younger, I used to just sit up till midnight and get myself wrecked over business presentations, right? And that's such a bad idea. I recommend not rehearsing the night before. So do your practice weeks in advance, practice in bed, practice to camera. But the night before, give your brain a rest, give your voice a rest. But in the morning, I do a run through again. So this morning at 7 a.m., I turned my camera on, I did a little run through, and it was perfect. If I would have stayed up late last night practicing, there's something called the point of diminishing return. Your voice can go hoarse. You're going to be tired. You're not going to bring the energy and engagement to the audience. So give yourself that break. You definitely want to practice, but build in a schedule to where you're being kind to yourself.
I've got this question from somebody who's 6'3", and that person walks towards a distracted audience to bring back their attention. What other moves, physical moves, can that person use to bring the audience back to you, or does it even matter at that point?
It It depends on how big the distraction is. As soon as you start heading towards someone, that should do it, honestly. If I'm sitting there chatting away with someone and I see a figure coming up to me, it's going to be a little bit embarrassing for that distractor. However, other things you can do is simply just hold space in the room. So maybe walk up to the front of the room and kind of open your arms up and get ready to deliver your next point. Do something magnanimous so people are looking at you. That's another way to kind of take control back. And then also, you can call them out. This is a very bold move, and you have to be confident in doing this, but you can excuse the person. I wouldn't do this like in this format, but if you're in a sales training or something, you could definitely ask the person to step outside because, again, they're distracting the audience that wants to be there and hear your information.
How do you increase audience engagement?
Oh, I gave like 20 tips in the PDF. Some fun ways of doing it are questions. People will always answer questions typically. Another thing I like to do is start with abstract images. I mentioned this earlier. If you're going to talk about a cute puppy eating an ice cream, don't show the cute puppy eating an ice cream. Show the melted ice cream and dog fur, for instance. Try to think of something opposite or abstract. You want to get people thinking like what's going to happen next, much like in storytelling, we set them up with our visuals and then we pull them through the story.
Hey, Kelly, this has been great, very enlightening. How can people get in touch with you?
Sure, the best place is k@sugarpleaseproductions.com. Shoot me an email. This is a brand new company, so I'm just building my YouTube channels and Facebook, but you can like those as well. And as I start putting out new content, we'll be connected.
Very good. Again, this has been great. I've got so many more questions here. I'm sure that these people are going to want to connect with you separately, and you're welcome all of them, correct?
Yes, please. I am taking the 4th holiday off, but I promise to answer every email sent.
That's great. That's great. Well, listen, stick around for a second because I want to tell you what's coming up at Westcliff. We're looking for volunteers for something very, very special. It's called Up to Us Bike Camp, which Westcliff is participating or partnering with Unlimited Possibilities, an incredible organization that in this case is teaching kids with different abilities to ride bikes. We're looking for volunteers who can volunteer some of their time for a couple of days because we want continuity to actually help these kids. You go from trikes to full-scale bikes and learn for the first time how to ride a bike. It's a very it's again, the name of the organization is Unlimited Possibilities. You should look it up and learn about it because it's pretty remarkable. In addition, we have an MBA coffee chat, and what that is basically, if you want to learn about the MBA program at Westcliff, this is the way to do it. It's a casual meet and greet, and you'll meet some of the faculty, and you'll meet some of the admissions counselors, etc. They'll tell you about this incredible program. We just graduated our largest class this year, 2023, and it's worth your time, believe me. So I want to thank everyone for joining, and I'd like you to watch for the great speaker lineup for the fall, starting in September. We have some amazing guests scheduled, including Space Shuttle Commander Hoot Gibson, who presented the commencement address at our 2023 Westcliff graduation. There's so many students who wanted to ask him questions about his career and NASA that we decided to invite him back for a one-on-one in Q&A. So that'll be something to look forward to, as well as several other incredible speakers. So again, thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.